Today on The Science of Music, we're going to teach you how to make a speaker out of a...
Yeah, a frappuccino. Okay, well, more specifically the cup, a little bit of wire, a few magnets, and just a little bit of ingenuity. Are you done yet? I mean, we kind of need it. Before you begin building your speaker, let's take a look at the materials you're going to need. One of the main components that you'll need is a spool of what's called magnet wire. Magnet wire consists of a very thin copper filament surrounded by an insulating enamel coating. You can pick up a few spools of magnet wire from a Radio Shack. The other main component you'll need for your speaker is a set of small washer magnets. You can find ceramic or slightly more powerful neodymium magnets like these for a few dollars at your local hardware store. You'll also need two kinds of tape: packing tape for creating the diaphragm of your speaker, and some electrical tape for sealing gaps. You'll need some wire snips like this, a pair of wire strippers to help remove the enamel from the magnet wire, a box cutter or a safety razor of some kind to make necessary holes in your cup, and for manipulating pieces of wire and other small objects, a pair of needle nose pliers will come in handy as well. And for the fun part, we're going to build the housing for your speaker out of a Starbucks cup. So after you've finished your favorite frappuccino or stolen one from a friend, be sure to save the plastic cup, lid, and straw. As a side note, it probably helps to clean out the whipped cream first. To make the connection between your audio source and your speaker wire, you may also want to have some leads handy as well. These alligator leads make connections especially easy because of the clips on either end. These you can also find at a Radio Shack or hardware store. The speaker that we're about to build works on the principles of what's called transduction. For our purposes, transduction can be referred to as the transfer of acoustic or physical energy into electrical energy, or in the case of our speaker, the exact opposite, the transference of electrical energy from our audio signal into acoustic energy, the vibration of the speaker that we hear. If we take a large coil of wire and we place it near a magnet, we've created a scenario where transduction can easily occur. If we send an electrical signal through this coil from one end of the wire to the other, any fluctuations in that signal will be translated into fluctuations of the magnetic force, more accurately referred to as the magnetic field. These fluctuations of the magnetic field will then in turn vibrate the coil of wire. To simulate a speaker diaphragm, we'll place a piece of tape across this coil of wire. Together, this entire unit will vibrate to create the sound that we hear. When we feed an audio signal in one end of the wire and out the other, and bring the entire unit into a magnetic field, we'll see the magic of transduction start to occur as the entire unit begins to vibrate according to the audio signal that's being sent through it. Now let's take a look at the magnet wire. Spools like this usually come in lengths of anywhere from 30 or 40 to several hundred feet. Now for our small speaker, we definitely don't need that much wire. And in fact, using too much will make it difficult for the unit to vibrate. For our purposes, 20 or 25 feet should be perfectly adequate. With that said, you'll of course want to unwind some wire and store it elsewhere. Unless you happen to have an empty spool lying around, which is even better. As it turns out, we can use this plastic spool to help create a solid base for our speaker diaphragm. To decrease the amount of plastic that's forced to vibrate, we're going to use a pair of clippers to cut away one of the spool's outer rings. As you can see, we've created a perfect frame for our speaker. We can place the magnets in the center, wrap the wire around the existing midsection, and put a piece of tape over the remaining ring to create the speaker diaphragm. Most spools will have a hole somewhere in the cylinder. Here, you can leave yourself a lead on one end of the wire before you begin wrapping. The next step is to simply begin wrapping your wire. Be sure to keep the wire tight and space out the windings to cover a significant portion of the cylinder. As we said before, 20 or 25 feet should be plenty. Once you've reached that approximate length, you can cut the wire and leave yourself another long extending lead. To help hold the wire in place, we'll take a piece of electrical tape and wrap it around the newly formed coil. After we've wound and sealed the coil, we'll take another piece of tape and place it across the top. Be sure to leave corners of tape extending on all sides, as these will be used to affix it to the speaker cone. Now we'll take this unit and place it inside the lid of our cup. As we press the tape down to the inside of the lid, you'll see that it forms something like a speaker cone, which you may have seen before. Now we'll create the housing for our speaker. You've seen the slot in cup lids for straws, and all we're going to do is recreate that on the bottom of our cup. If you're using a box cutter or razor of any kind, always be sure to cut away from your fingers. Now we'll take this straw and insert it in the slot in the bottom of the cup. This straw will now serve to support the magnets which will hold up inside the coil. This is where having washer magnets comes in handy, as we can simply place them over the end of the straw in the cup. You may want to bend the straw or use some tape to help hold the magnets in place. Next, we'll make another small incision, this time on the cup itself, somewhere near the bottom. This is where you'll be able to pull the speaker leads out of. We'll take the leads from the speaker, feed them down into the cup, and then out through this new incision. From here, you can wrap a piece of electrical tape around the cup and lid to secure them together. After the cone is affixed to the cup, you can adjust the length of the straw to make sure the magnet sits neatly inside the coil without touching the tape. After you've adjusted the placement of the magnet, you can cut off the excess straw. Be sure to leave about an inch extending below the cup. Again, being sure to cut away from your fingers, you can cut along the length of the extending straw, separating it into 2 or 3 parts. Now, you can fold these flaps out and tape them to the bottom of the cup. This will help stabilize the straw and give you a flat surface, allowing your speaker to stand up. And there you have it, you've built your very own homemade speaker. Now let's look at how to hook it up to an audio source to see how it sounds. Before connecting your speaker to an audio source, you'll have to scrape or strip off the enamel at the ends of your extending leads. This is where the alligator clips will come in handy. Attach one to either lead extending from your cup. And now we'll head for your audio source. As you can see, the tips of these cables are divided into 3 sections. One of these sections carries the left channel of your audio, another section the right channel, and the remaining section is called the ground or shield of the cable. You'll want to connect one lead from your speaker to the right and or left channels of this cable, and the remaining lead to the ground section. This will allow the audio signal to pass in one end of the coil and out through the other. Now that the speaker is connected to the cable, we're all set to plug into the audio device. Now, out of a small speaker like this with no additional amplification, you can't expect a great deal of loudness. But you have to admit it's pretty cool that with a little bit of handiwork and some everyday objects, you've recreated the exact thing that goes on inside speakers that you'd buy right off the shelf.